Chapter 3240. The Emperor's aura surged, scaring the group of old physicians. They all hurriedly agreed. Emolien looked on coldly from the sidelines, watching as they turned around to leave like a bunch of pinched flies. He couldn't help but frown. He said indifferently, "Have someone gather all the palace maids and eunuchs in Yongren Palace and examine them together." If these old imperial physicians, who couldn't even walk properly, were to walk back and forth, they would probably lose half their lives. The crown princess has arrived. Emolien's eyes lit up. Just as he was about to walk towards the door, he was caught off guard by his father's glare. Prince Emo turned a blind eye and left the group of people behind. He happily walked to the arched door. Soon, he walked back with a smile on his face, holding his little wife's hand. He muttered to her in a low voice, "Jojo, a eunuch in Yongren Palace has mutated." Abba blinked and looked curiously at the crazily screaming eunuch. He saw that there were several ropes around his neck, and several people were exerting all their strength to pull him in several directions at the same time. He was like a trapped bird. No matter how hard he flapped his wings, he couldn't break free from the crowd's grip. How did he mutate? This was truly impossible to guard against. It seemed that a portion of Chen Yun's power had already infiltrated the capital, but they hadn't made a move for many years. So now, they wanted to make a move step by step? Wang Fu made a trip to Kai Dai Pavilion on Changle Avenue today to purchase holy rice. An elderly nanny beside Queen Dowager Chen stealthily peeked at Xiao Mu as she spoke. He became like this after he came back. The young couple turned their heads at the same time and looked at her with cold eyes. The nanny shrank back. She felt a chill at the back of her head and couldn't help but shiver. Empress Dowager Chen reached out and patted the nanny's hand. Her gaze fell indifferently on the little crown princess. "Crown princess, what do you have to say about this?" Aijia heard that the crown princess was called the source of disaster the moment she entered the capital. After that, every time he attacked, he was incomparably ruthless. Now, after making a trip to the Kai Dai Pavilion that you're managing, Empress Dowager Chen has become like this. What do you have to say for yourself? Ignoring the young couple's glare, Queen Dowager Chen asked Xiao Mu coldly. Emo Luxing frowned and said with a cold face, "Empress Dowager, the criticisms of the ignorant people on the streets are not credible. Could it be that just because they said that the little crown princess was the source of the disaster, she really was? Moreover, this rumor was made up by the saintess of the temple." Presently, they already knew that the deity hall was the fangs and claws of Tian Yun, and the reason why they would deal with the crown princess was clear as day. The crown princess has repeatedly opposed Tian Yun. They are like fire and water. She will never walk together with Tian Yun. Empress Dowager, don't worry too much. Empress Dowager Chen turned to look at the emperor and sighed in her heart. It seemed that the rumors were not false. The emperor seemed to be gradually protecting the little crown princess for the sake of the crown prince. The deity hall was willing to become the fangs and claws of Tian Yun. Now that it has been destroyed, the Tian Yun organization is naturally unwilling. Emo Lusheng said indifferently, "Today's move might be a crooked method that Tian Yun thought of to deal with the crown princess." "Your Majesty, then what about Aijia's Baojia? What about Baojia?" Empress Dowager Chen revealed a pained expression. Chapter 3241. She looked at the little crown princess and said, "Tell me, did you harm my Baojia? She's only an 18-year-old girl. She's just a little willful because she's spoiled by her family. Why do you have to make things difficult for her and make it so that she can't even return to Dragon Flame City?" Xiao Mu looked her up and down before tugging at her husband's sleeve. "What did she ask me to come here for? Was it because of the corpse puppet or Chen Baojia? If it was the former, she could gather the stewards to ask about it when she returned to Kai Dai Pavilion tomorrow. If it was the latter, she couldn't care less about Chen Baojia. What did Chen Baojia's life have to do with her? What a joke. They weren't on the same team. Could it be that Miss Chen died during her training and she had to blame it on Sir Jojo? Wouldn't that be the biggest joke in the world? Abba hadn't interacted with Empress Dowager Chen before and didn't know her at all. However, seeing Chen Baojia's usual behavior and thinking of the Chen family style, she didn't like Empress Dowager Chen. Not to mention that Empress Dowager Chen was like an old fool who couldn't distinguish right from wrong. Aba couldn't help but frown. Emolienne lowered her head and held her little hand, comforting her softly. Then, she looked up at Empress Dowager Chen and said, "Although Chen Baojia went to the Sun-Moon Mystic Realm with us. But to put it bluntly, we're not on the same team and don't know each other well," Prince Emo said coldly. "I've already told Father about the collapse of the Mystic Realm. As for what happened to Miss Chen after the collapse of the Mystic Realm, we don't know. At that time, Jojo and I were in danger and exhausted. We really didn't have the time to care about Miss Chen's life and death. Please forgive us, Empress Dowager." Empress Dowager Chen was a little annoyed by the tactful rebuff. Chen Baojia was the most talented girl in their family. She was already a level 9 spiritual master at such a young age and had a bright future. But now, however, his whereabouts were unknown and there was no news of him. How could the Chen clan not be anxious? "Your Majesty, how should we deal with Fu Wang?" His personal eunuch, Hu Dequan, walked forward shakily and carefully glanced at the emperor. The great emperor glared. What else could he do? Naturally, he burned it with fire. Prince Emo said calmly, "Let's deal with it later. My wife won't take the blame for this," he said coldly, his gaze drifting to the Empress Dowager's face. "Tomorrow, we'll go to the Kai Dai brothel to investigate this matter. We can't splash dirty water for no reason." Jojo nodded his little head vigorously, expressing his agreement. Empress Dowager Chen's face was a bit ugly. Although the Crown Prince didn't say anything harsh, every word he said was directed at her, making her heart feel suffocated. Empress Dowager Chen looked at the young couple again. She saw that the two of them had their fingers tightly clasped together from beginning to end. Although the two of them looked indifferent and didn't have any big fluctuations, she didn't know why, but she felt that it made people feel uncomfortable. The emperor didn't know how to reprimand the two of them. The Crown Prince was the heir to the throne of the Divine Prefecture. How could he disregard his image and stick to the Crown Princess everywhere? Empress Dowager Chen's eyes sharpened. The Kai Dai brothel's matter must be investigated, but it shouldn't be the Crown Prince. Empress Dowager Chen said coldly, "Your Majesty, I think this matter should be handed over to the Supreme Court to investigate." Chapter 32-42. Queen Dowager Chen said aloofly, "What does your Majesty think?" The Emperor glanced at Queen Dowager Chen before reflexively looking at his son. Seeing that his son's face was unperturbed and didn't seem to have any other expression, the Emperor coughed lightly and was about to speak. Then he heard the little stoic say coldly, "It's not impossible to hand it over to the Supreme Court for investigation. But you two also know that it's not an exaggeration to say that my Kai Dai pavilion rakes in gold every day. Investigation is one thing. If my Kai Dai pavilion's business is delayed, the royal court must compensate me." The Emperor's eyelid twitched inexplicably. Whenever he heard the word compensation, he would feel his scalp tingle for no reason. That bastard Giant Pain's compensation had implicated him for no reason, causing him to inexplicably bleed. This time, it had nothing to do with him at all. If he still had to pay this compensation, then wouldn't he be too bloody unlucky? Then let the Crown Prince supervise from the side while the Supreme Court investigates. The Emperor didn't feel like he was being cowardly at all. Queen Dowager Chen creased her brows. If the Crown Prince supervised from the side, would the Supreme Court's people still dare to properly interrogate the Kai Dai Pavilion's people? Just as she was about to express her dissatisfaction, she heard the Emperor say righteously, "Let's do it this way. Queen Dowager, you must be very tired after being tormented for the majority of the day. Rest early." Emo Lusheng turned to glance at that incessantly howling eunuch. With a move of his palm, he struck out a swift and fierce force that directly penetrated the back of that thing's head. Bam! That eunuch instantly fell to the ground and didn't move at all. Queen Dowager Chen jumped in fright and pursed her lips with an unsightly expression. "If your Majesty kills him now, won't there be no witnesses at that time?" Emo Lusheng creased his brows. This eunuch has already metamorphosed and will gradually lose consciousness completely. There's no use in keeping him. Then didn't he not completely lose his humanity right now? Queen Dowager Chen was a bit angry. Gods. Mo Luxing made a prompt decision. Drag him out and burn him. Remember to be careful. Yes. The emperor's personal bodyguards immediately cupped their hands in salute and dragged that eunuch out without another word. Although Empress Dowager Chen was angry, she couldn't stop it. Furthermore, this eunuch had indeed mutated. Leaving him in the Yongren Palace would be a disaster. But even so, she still felt a little uncomfortable when she saw the emperor protecting the crown princess in every way. Their Bao Jia did not return from the arcane realm this time. According to Gu Yixuan and the others, the death of the second daughter of the Zhongli family seemed to have something to do with the little crown princess. She doesn't know if Bao Jia's case has anything to do with this vicious little girl. Thinking of this, Empress Dowager Chen's eyes became very sharp. She coldly glanced at Jojo. The latter tilted her head and glared at her. Then, she tugged at her husband's finger. Emolien followed behind her and said mildly, "Imperial Father, it's getting late. We still have to go to Kai Dai Pavilion tomorrow morning to investigate the matter. I'll take my leave then." Empress Dowager Chen couldn't help but say angrily, "Stop right there." This old lady had been paying attention to the young couple the entire time. How could she not see the little crown princess hooking her finger? His Highness the Crown Prince was hooked by his little wife and ran away. What kind of scandal was this? Crown Prince and Crown Princess have returned to the capital for several months. Empress Dowager Chen's voice was very cold. Chapter 32-43. If you want to talk about adapting, after these months, the Crown Princess should have adapted to life in the palace. Empress Dowager Chen coldly looked at the little Crown Princess and said, "But looking at it now, how come you still don't know etiquette? It's clear that you need to be taught by the palace's old nannies and learn the palace etiquette. If you don't go out, you'll lose the face of our royal family and become a joke." When the little Crown Princess heard this, a nameless fire immediately appeared in her heart. She turned her head to look at Empress Dowager Chen with cold eyes and said word for word, "Do you want to die?" The little fellow pulled her little hand out of Prince Mo's hand and walked step by step towards Empress Dowager Chen, who was staring at her. "Old lady, I advise you to mind your own business. It's fine as long as you take care of your own Chen family. If you want to mind this crown princess's business, I'll let you know how the word death is written." Empress Dowager Chen was stared at by her bone-chilling eyes and couldn't help shivering. She was so angry that her body trembled and her face turned green. She trembled as she shouted, Your Majesty, look at her, look at her." Threat. This was a naked threat. Empress Dowager Chen never would have thought that this little crown princess in front of His Majesty would be so terrifying as to say that she wanted to kill her. She was so angry that she couldn't say a complete sentence. The young crown prince consort smiled faintly at her and clenched her small fists. In this world, strength is revered in the first place. Could it be that old madam's mind has become muddled after staying in the inner court for too long, and she no longer understands the laws of the 3 provinces? I'll give you a piece of advice. If you anger this crown princess, even the heavens won't be able to save you. After saying this, she sent out a kick that created a deep hole in the stone floor. Empress Dowager Chen was so shocked that she fell back. The old nannies beside her screamed and quickly reached out to support her. "You shameless thing." Abba looked at the old lady coldly, turned around, and left. She wasn't a good-natured little white flower who would repeatedly compromise for the sake of her family's reputation and righteousness. Get lost. If it happened once or twice, she could let it slide in Arbor, but if it happened a 3rd time, she would use her strength to kill it. That was her principle. Don't blame her for being ruthless, heartless, and cold. Emolien quickly reached out to pull his little wife over and carefully looked at the little fellow's face. He turned back to Empress Dowager Chen and angrily said, "My wife is very busy, don't bother her with these random things." What about learning the etiquette of the palace? Wasn't that a joke? His wife would be in seclusion for 70 to 80 days on the fish orchid planet. Who would have the time to learn etiquette from these old women? Your Majesty, look. Take a look. Empress Dowager Chen was so angry that her chest heaved up and down. She almost couldn't finish her sentence. Look at this, is this still the appearance of a crown prince? How is this the appearance of the future mother of the world? If this goes on, the royal family's reputation will be completely ruined by the two of them. When the emperor heard this, his expression also turned ugly. Empress Dowager, what are you saying? The two children are still young and can't be impatient. You have to teach them slowly. Also, how is the crown prince not behaving like a crown prince? The emperor was very dissatisfied that his son was not good enough. Chapter 32-44. This was his and Empress' only son. His little glutinous rice ball had outstanding talent and intelligence since he was young. The moment he was born, he inherited the ancient Emolyen bloodline that no one in the family had been able to inherit for thousands of years. The emperor believed that if his son claimed to be number 2 in the world, no one could become number 1 in the world. He didn't like hearing the Empress Dowager's words. In view of the fact that the Empress Dowager had been in the palace for a long time and was his father's second empress, she had been a kind old woman all these years. Even though she had her own thoughts and considerations, she didn't play many small tricks. The emperor was more respectful to her for his father's sake. But hearing her talk about his son like this today, his mood immediately soured. If she said that his son didn't look like an heir, then it wouldn't do. His only son would definitely inherit everything he had in the future. Who else could he give the country passed down by the previous emperor to but his little glutinous rice ball? Besides, his son was so smart. In just a few months after he came back, he had most of the people in the court, old and young, so convinced of him. With this ability, how could he not look like an heir? Simply laughable. Seeing the emperor's face suddenly darken, the Empress Dowager naturally felt a bit stifled. That was why people said that dogs had to be raised and sons had to be born. Otherwise, they wouldn't be on the same page no matter what. Looking at the stepson she had watched grow up in front of her, but now he was glaring at her like this, Empress Dowager Chen felt a chill in her heart. Your Majesty. Empress Dowager, no need to say more. Emo Luxing gruffly retorted the Empress Dowager's words. The Crown Princess's cultivation has just risen and needs to stabilize. You shouldn't get involved. Tomorrow, have them follow the people from the Supreme Court and see what's going on at Kai Dai Pavilion. Emo Luxing waved his hand. We'll talk about the rest after the investigation. Empress Dowager Chen was so angry she couldn't speak for a while. Seeing the emperor about to leave Yongren Palace, she hurriedly called a mama to support her and walked forward shakily. Your Majesty, there's one more thing. The matter of taking a consort that I mentioned to you last time. Emo Luxing's face pulled even longer, impatient to talk about this with the Empress Dowager. He waved his hand and said, It's not like Jeanne doesn't have a son, why take a consort? Empress Dowager Chen leaned back in anger. Why don't you take a look at how many sons the great emperor of the Tsong Prefecture and the Underworld Prefecture has? What about you? She was his only biological child. No wonder he treated her like a treasure. Because you don't have any other candidate for the Crown Prince. She took a look at the Crown Prince's character and temper. He wasn't even half as reliable as King Zheng. Every time the topic of concubines was brought up, the great emperor would leave in a hurry. The more Empress Dowager Chen thought about it, the angrier she got. Naturally, she wouldn't let him escape this time. She hurriedly had someone help shivering forward and blocked the emperor's path. She earnestly said, Your Majesty, you're not young anymore. He only has 2 children, and one of them is just an adopted son. The empress has been asleep for so many years, and the position of the Empress of the Divine Prefecture has been empty for so many years. I'm just your stepmother. You don't have to listen to me, but you have to consider the feelings of the previous emperors of the Divine Prefecture. The great emperor said with a solemn face, What objections could the previous emperor have? If he has any complaints, tell him to come and find me. Hu Dequan was speechless. Empress Dowager Chen was furious. She reached out to grab his hand and said anxiously, Zhu Ci country is close to the barbarian tribe. The terrain is dangerous. Chapter 32-45. They seek the protection of our divine prefecture all year round. This time, they even sent over their country's youngest and most beautiful third princess. Aijia has already met that Princess Yenyun. She is well educated and exceptionally gentle. Why don't your majesty take her in this time? On one hand, it can let the little king of Zhu Ci kingdom rest assured. On the other hand, it can also help our divine prefecture's imperial family spread its bloodline. Aijia thinks that your majesty should like. Emo Liuxing's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. He raised his hand and waved it forcefully, stopping the Empress Dowager from continuing. No need. That Princess Yenyun, he had never even seen her before. This Empress Dowager was baffling, acting on her own initiative and actually saying that he would like her? Where did her confidence come from, to think that he could take in that small country's princess? Emo Liuxing's face was full of anger as he flicked his sleeves and left. They were all troublesome people. The thought of his Wu Xia still lying in that cold place, silent and motionless, made his heart tremble. Yet, there were still so many troublesome people who wanted to stick to his side. Every time he thought of this, he couldn't suppress the rage in his heart. He only wanted to tear all those B*****s who intentionally or unintentionally wanted to get close to him to shreds. Whoever came would be unlucky. Lord Jojo waved his hand, drawing open the demonic eyes vision vortex that was circled with spiritual energy. In the vortex of spiritual energy, the last thing that appeared was the great emperor's figure striding out of Yongren Palace. Lord Jojo said with displeasure, "That old lady is really troublesome. She can't torment us, so she went to torment your father. She wants to find you a stepmother." Lord Jojo was full of displeasure when he thought of this. Jojo's Lien's mother was still lying unconscious, and these people were always thinking of finding someone to replace her. How could this be? On the other hand, Emo Lien chuckled soundlessly and said while holding her hand, "My dad isn't that stupid. This proper father wasn't that lustful old great king of Emo Kingdom, who would be charmed by trash like Yung He. If he wanted to take in concubines, after all these years, the harem would have bloomed everywhere. His younger brothers and sisters were already running around. Even after so many years, his father was still unmoved. It was obvious that he only had his mother in his heart. As long as his heart is firm enough, I have a way to make this old lady stop." Emo Lien lightly said. "Find something for the old lady to do," Mr. Jojo said impatiently, "so that she won't keep staring at other people's family matters. Don't the Chen family have a lot of problems? Give her more." Emo Lien chuckled. He hugged his wife and nodded. "Okay, I'll listen to my wife." Lord Jojo nodded in satisfaction. He reached out and pushed his husband's body. "Go take a bath. You stink." "Where does he stink?" Emo Lien pursed her lips and resentfully went to take a bath. Early the next morning, the young couple followed the great emperor's orders and left the palace. As a result, Mu Qingya, who came to invite the little crown princess home at noon, came back empty-handed again. Even Nanny Chio's expression turned ugly. "Greetings to your highnesses the crown prince and the crown princess." Shopkeeper who hurriedly bowed, then cupped his hands at the young man beside him. Zhang Shaoqing. The vice-chancellor of the Supreme Court, Zhang Hang, sized up the shopkeeper and nodded. "Did anyone from the palace come to buy holy rice yesterday? Tell me about the situation." Shopkeeper who glanced at the little crown princess. Seeing the latter nod at him, he relaxed. Chapter 32-46. Shopkeeper who organized his thoughts and said methodically, "Yesterday, there was indeed someone from the palace who came to purchase holy rice. But everyone knows that a few days ago, this last bowl of holy rice was sold for 180,000 taels. Zhang Shaoqing immediately turned around to glance at the young crown princess. He heard that this Kai Dai restaurant was the young crown princess's business. In that case, The young crown princess really was a super millionaire who earned 10 million taels a day. The little stoic was suspicious and also glanced at this deputy minister of the Supreme Judiciary. This deputy minister of the Supreme Judiciary was a man of few words. Being able to sit in this position at such a young age indicated that he was very capable. Zhang Shaoqing coughed lightly and said, "Continue." "Sir, when this palace servant came to inquire, this humble old man naturally told him that there was no stock. At that time, this person was very angry and repeatedly stated that a certain noble from the palace wanted to try something new. He even threatened this humble old man to not refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. When shopkeeper who said this, he involuntarily laughed bitterly when he recalled yesterday's scene. We naturally didn't dare to deceive a noble from the palace. But we also couldn't conjure something that we didn't have." Shopkeeper who sighed and said, "That palace servant messed with us for half a day and ruined several of our business deals in a row. In the end, when he left, he even pointed at our signboard and cursed loudly, saying that there might not be any rice better than our holy rice that was sold in the Eastern Street Market. As a result, he left in a huff." Shopkeeper who said, "After that, we didn't know what happened." Zhang Shaoqing nodded and turned to say to Prince Mo, "Your Highness the Crown Prince, this humble official wants to make a trip to the Eastern Street Market to see if I can find some clues." Mo Lien nodded indifferently. "This matter has nothing to do with Kai Dai Restaurant. After returning, just write a complete report and submit it to His Majesty." Zhang Shaoqing was startled. He wanted to say that this matter needed to be investigated further, but when he saw Prince Mo's cold gaze, he had an inexplicable feeling that he couldn't continue. Kai Dai Pavilion doesn't even have enough time to earn money every day. Do they have the time to make life difficult for a eunuch? Mo Lien calmly swept a glance at Zhang Shaoqing before saying, "Hui Feng." Hui Feng instantly emerged from behind the crown prince. "Take some people and follow Zhang Shaoqing. Remember to wear protective armor. Disperse the crowd first, then focus on searching every nook and cranny of the market. Zhang Shaoqing, there must be a big surprise waiting for you." After Mo Lien said this, she held the little stoic's hand and walked upstairs to Kai Dai Pavilion. Since he was already here, he would naturally have lunch before leaving. As for Zhang Shaoqing and the others? Since they have work to do, I won't keep them any longer. Hui Feng silently shed tears as he watched the crown prince and the little crown princess go upstairs together. The bitterness in his heart bubbled out. Hui Feng also wanted to go upstairs to eat. Hui Feng didn't want to follow Zhang Heng, this guy, to the Eastern Street Market to search for clues at all. While the two of them sat down in the private room and waited for their food, Sir Jojo involuntarily pursed his lips and said, "It's such a big contribution. It's better to let stubborn Chow lead people there." Mo Lien couldn't help but break into laughter. Their positions are different. How can the capital governor meddle in the Supreme Court's affairs? His Jojo was truly adorable. As long as it was someone she took a fancy to, she would always spare no effort to help them. He got off easy. Sir Jojo humphed. Chapter 32-47. Zhang Shaoqing's expressionless face didn't even smile as he walked over. It was as if Sir Jojo owed him 180,000 taels. Prince Mo curled his lips in amusement and reached out to hold one of her little paws. "Jojo, actually, your expression is not much better than his. Ahem, it's not much better. Wasn't it just facial paralysis meeting facial paralysis? Did they not like each other?" Sir Jojo rolled his eyes at him. "You're the only one who did something superfluous and made Hui Feng run over to help him. We should have let stubborn Chow take action. He could have caught the source of the disaster in one go and become famous both inside and outside Dragon Flame City." Prince Mo didn't know whether to laugh or cry. How much did this child Jojo admire stubborn Chow from the capital office? Okay. Next time, I'll definitely let stubborn Chow do it." Prince Mo raised his hand to rub the little fellow's head. Then, he turned to look at the group of people who were quickly walking in with plates of food. The waiters from Kai Dai Veranda all came in with smiles on their faces. They deftly put down the plates and asked if the two of them needed anything before retreating in unison. Everyone in Kai Dai Veranda was beaming with joy. Whenever their little crown princess came over, they would definitely reward her handsomely. When Zhang and Jie came in, he saw the little crown princess picking up some winter bamboo shoots with her chopsticks and placing them on the crown prince's plate. "Greetings to your highness the crown prince and crown princess." The little crown princess looked up and sized him up. "I saw the new menu you designed just now. It's not bad." Not only was the price tag very clear on the menu, but every dish was also painted with color, aroma, and taste. As long as a customer saw it, no one could resist the temptation of such delicious food. "Thank you for your praise, Crown Princess." Zhang and Jie's emotions were strangely complicated. He couldn't tell what he was feeling. He seemed to be a little proud and satisfied. Strangely, why did he feel like he was floating after being praised by the little crown princess? While they were talking, they heard the sound of footsteps coming from outside the room. When a group of people passed by the door of their box, they inadvertently glanced inside. Suddenly, a female voice called out, "Big sister, it's her? She's back. Didn't you say that she might have died in the secret realm?" Mu Rochuan's face was slightly pale. She stared at Arbor in front of her, as if she was unwilling and in disbelief. "That's right, shouldn't she have died in that secret realm?" Looking at the situation now, she had returned in one piece. Mu Rochuan stared at the arbor in front of her as if she was possessed. Her mind was in a mess as she exclaimed, You're not dead? You didn't die?" When Emolienne heard this, a trace of displeasure arose in her heart. She coldly glared at him. "Throw him out." Tong's figure suddenly appeared in front of Mu Rochuan and reached out to grab her neck without saying a word. No sooner said than done, a trace of anger flashed across Mu Rochuan's pale face. Her entire body tensed up in an instant as she raised her fist and punched at Tong's palm. Bang! After a muffled sound, Tong's expression changed slightly and he retreated a few steps. Prince Amo suddenly got up and floated behind him. He pressed one hand against Tong's back and stopped him from continuing to fly backward. With his other hand, he quickly formed a pitch-black lotus seal and threw it straight at Mu Rochuan's face. The latter was shocked and her pupils shrank. Chapter 32:48. Bang! Mu Rochuan screamed as she fell. If it weren't for Prince Emo showing mercy, Mu Rochuan would have been sent flying. Of course, Emolienne wasn't showing mercy to Mu Rochuan. It was mainly because she didn't want to destroy Kai Dai Pavilion's entrance for no reason. As a result, it still caused quite a commotion. Everyone couldn't help but run over. Peak level, 15 Great Spiritualist? Looking at Mu Rochuan, who had fallen into the corner and couldn't get up, Emolienne's expression changed unpredictably. She couldn't be clearer about Tong's strength. Currently, he had reached level 14 Great Spiritualist. But he couldn't take Mu Rochuan's punch? What did that mean? It meant that Mu Rochuan's realm was above Tong's. Arbor also walked to the door. Her gaze carried traces of suspicion as she sized up Mu Rochuan. "What did you do?" she asked coldly. It was impossible for a person's strength to instantly increase by 5 levels in a short month. Previously, Mu Rochuan was only a level 10 Great Spiritualist. After coming out of the secret realm, she advanced to level 15 Great Spiritualist. How was that possible? One had to know that Lord Jojo had absorbed the spiritual power of the entire Sun-Moon secret realm. But that was only enough to jump 3 levels and enter the threshold of level 13 Great Spiritualist. Even so, she was still paranoid that her realm might be unstable. During this time, she had been cultivating to stabilize her strength. And Mu Rochuan's advancement speed was actually faster than her, who had absorbed an entire secret realm's spiritual power. Wasn't this ridiculous and funny? This couldn't be called a fortuitous encounter. There had to be some problem. Even secret techniques weren't as exaggerated as Mu Rochuan's. She carefully sized up this woman's complexion. She discovered that other than her face being a bit weak and pale, her aura was very stable. She naturally couldn't see anything wrong with her eyes. The best method was to take her pulse. It would be best if she used her divine sense to investigate. But with Mu Rochuan's vigilant attitude, this was naturally impossible. She would not let Jojo get close to her. Aba's eyes turned, and he tilted his small head to glance at Mu Roxian. A meaningful expression hung on the little stoic's face. Mu Roxian, you couldn't have embarked on some crooked path, right? Mu Rochuan's heart trembled, but her expression didn't change in the slightest. She raised her head and coldly glanced at Aba, her mouth full of sarcasm. What, because my cultivation has increased greatly, you're worried and afraid? Aba couldn't help but roll his eyes. There's always someone better than me. What's there to be afraid of? As long as you work hard enough, live up to your life, and don't waste time, that's enough. Mu Rochuan's fingers clenched tightly into her palms as she stared fixedly at Xiao Mu. After a long while, she said, emphasizing each word, everyone will be jealous. You're lying. Right now, she was already a peak level, 15 great spiritual cultivator. Shouldn't Aba be like Mu Rochuan and Mu Royun, looking at her with faint jealousy and adoration? What right did he have to tell her so nonchalantly that it was enough as long as she lived up to her life? Pretend. Keep pretending. Mu Rochuan only felt her stomach turn. She propped herself up inch by inch from the corner and coldly looked at Aba. Every year on grandfather's birthday, the Mu clan competition will be held. On that day, do you dare to accept my challenge? She had a provocative expression. Chapter 32:49. Aba's gaze was so cold that it seemed like it was going to poke a hole in her face. This gaze caused Mu Rochuan's heart to involuntarily shrink. Then, for some reason, anger surfaced on her face. Why should she be afraid of the gaze of someone whose realm was lower than hers? What a joke. She was already able to completely crush this wretched girl, so why should she be afraid of her? My surname is not Mu. Aba coldly threw her a few words before turning to head back into the private room. You're being a coward. Mu Rochuan excitedly stared at her back, her eyes about to spit out sparks. Aba turned around and expressionlessly glanced at her. The corners of her lips curled up slightly. You're not my match. Aba had already seen through her earlier move. Mu Rochuan's realm had not stabilized at all. Tong was only knocked back by her punch because she was caught off guard. If they were to get serious, it would be hard to tell who would win. Mu Rochuan could not help but laugh out loud. Her gaze swept back and forth across her body as she coldly said, You don't need to find such an excuse if you're afraid of losing. For Big Brother's sake, I'll give you a piece of advice. Aba indifferently glanced at her and said, There are some crooked paths. Once you walk up, you won't be able to come down. You're on your own. With that, the little fellow pulled her husband into the private room and ordered someone to close the door. Aba, don't think that you can make me feel afraid just because you're spouting nonsense to me. Mu Rochuan sternly shouted from outside the door. You just don't dare to fight with me. Why do you have to find all kinds of high-sounding excuses? Big sister, she only knows how to flaunt her powerful connections. Mu Ruyan went up to support her and softly said, If we're talking about true ability, she really doesn't have it. Look, she didn't even dare to fight with you before. Didn't she let a guard by her side fight with you? Emolien slightly frowned and was about to flare up in displeasure when Aba reached out to press her down and casually picked up 2 slices of beef for her. Eat. Ignore them. There was no need to get angry with some idle people. It was not worth it at all, and it would even lower his status. She didn't want to bother Jojo's Lotus with the trivial matters of the Mu family. Emolien knew that she didn't want to make things difficult for him. He raised his hand to touch her little head and said, I don't like them talking about you like that. His Chow Chow was not a coward, and she disdained to do such a thing. Let's eat. Xiao Mu winked at him and said, Why are you being so long-winded with them? Just get someone to chase them away. As for Mu Rochuan, she had chosen her own path. When the time came, she would have to walk it herself even if she cried. "What are you doing here?" A gentle voice came from outside the door. Xiao Mu creased her brows slightly before concentrating on eating without looking up. Knock, knock, knock. The polite knocking sound was heard again. Sir Jojo frowned and put on a displeased expression. This meal was so annoying. One moment, Mu Rochuan brought a few of her sisters to make a scene, and the next moment, Mu Rochuan's mother came. Sir Jojo naturally recognized the voice outside the door. It was Mu Qingya outside. Yesterday, Mu Qingya had asked to see her outside the palace, but she had dismissed her with one sentence. At that time, Jojo knew that this woman would try to find a way to see her again today. Unexpectedly, she had followed her all the way to Kai Dai restaurant. He's really persistent, Jojo thought. Chapter 3250. Knock, knock, knock. Someone knocked on the door again. Emolienne put down her chopsticks and gestured to Tong with her eyes. Tong immediately opened the door and stepped to the left. "What's the matter?" Mu Qingya stepped forward and curtsied. "Greetings, Crown Prince and Crown Princess." Mu Rochuan's expression immediately turned ugly. She felt that her mother was degrading herself by curtsying to the little Crown Princess every time she saw her. As the eldest madam of the Mu family's first branch and Arber's stepmother, she didn't need to curtsy to a junior. Moreover, if Arber really cared about her mother, he would have asked her to dispense with the formalities before her mother curtsied. But now, she had to watch her mother curtsy before glaring at her coldly. Arber couldn't be bothered to look at Mu Rochuan's angry expression. No matter what she did, Mu Rochuan would always be dissatisfied with her. Since that was the case, why should she care? Mu Qingya looked up and smiled at Prince Amo and Arber. "Sorry to disturb you too." Sir Jojo looked up at her and said indifferently, "Madam, you must have chased us all the way to Kai Dai restaurant. What's the matter?" Mu Qingya smiled and said, "Old Master and Master are very happy to know that the Crown Princess is back. They want to invite the Crown Princess to come home and stay for a few days. Old Master's birthday is just around the corner. Old Madam is also looking forward to meeting the Crown Princess," Mu Qingya said with a smile. Mu Qingya said with a smile, "I was thinking that since the two elders in the family are so kind, I made the decision to invite the Crown Princess back. I hope that the Crown Princess and His Highness won't take offense." So she wanted to invite them back to the Mu family to stay. Arber glanced at Mu Qingya indifferently. "Of course we should go back to Old Master's birthday. We're just going back to stay." Arber directly rejected Mu Qingya. She didn't want to go back to the Mu garden and cause more trouble for herself. Wasn't it good to live a peaceful and happy life with Jojo's Lien in the Eastern Palace? Why was she in such a hurry to return to the Mu family? "Crown Princess," Mu Qingya hurriedly said, "Old Madam has been talking about you for a long time. Seeing that Old Madam misses her grandson very much, the Crown Princess should go home." Arber looked Mu Qingya up and down, curled his lips and said, "Don't you think I'm disgusting?" Mu Qingya was stunned. She quickly shook her head and said, "Crown Princess, what are you talking about? You are our Mu family's young lady. How could I?" Arber waved his hand and took a deep look at Mu Qingya. To be honest, from the day she returned to the first madam of the Mu family's eldest branch, she had never seen through this person's true thoughts. Logically speaking, as the second wife, she would more or less feel some disgust towards her ex, and she wouldn't care much about her ex's children. However, she still couldn't see through Mu Qingya. She didn't seem to dislike her and even protected her in every way. Why was this? "Mother, it's fine if she doesn't want to go back. Why do you have to invite her?" Mu Rochuan said angrily. "Rochuan, shut up." Mu Qingya glanced at her daughter and frowned slightly. "You're becoming more and more unruly. You're becoming more and more disrespectful. How have I been teaching you? How dare you rush to the Crown Prince and Crown Princess's door and shout like this? Go back to the temple and carefully copy the family rules 100 times. Don't come out until you're done." Chapter 32:51. Mu Rochuan's eyes widened in shock as she looked at her mother in disbelief. Her heart was filled with grievance, bitterness, and depression. She really couldn't understand why her mother had been so strict with her since she was young. This Chiao Mu had only returned to the Mu family for a little more than a month, yet her mother was already completely devoted to her. On the other hand, she was like a child that had been picked up from the streets. This caused her to be dissatisfied, and a deep hatred to rise in her heart. Her own mother didn't dote on her, but instead doted on her ex's child. Why was this? Mu Rochuan was very indignant and didn't even want to take another look at Arba. She straightened her back and turned around to leave. Mu Qingya angrily reprimanded her. "Rochuan, what's wrong with you? What have I been teaching you? Why don't you even care about etiquette now? Shouldn't you tell His Highness the Crown Prince before you leave?" Mu Rochuan turned around hatefully and stomped her feet with tears in her eyes. "Mother, I hate you." After he finished speaking, he turned his head and fled like a defeated rooster. "Eldest sister, eldest sister, eldest sister, wait for me." Mu Ruyan looked back at Arba and hurriedly chased after Mu Rochuan. Mu Qingya sighed as she looked at Mu Rochuan with disappointment in her eyes. She raised her hand to massage her throbbing temples. She turned and smiled apologetically at Arba. "Crown Princess, please forgive me. Your eldest sister has been spoiled by the family since she was young and didn't know her limits." Arba had been watching coldly from the sidelines for a while. In the end, he couldn't help but praise Mu Qingya in his heart. This Mu Qingya was much more knowledgeable and intelligent than Mu Rochuan. If Mu Qingya hadn't apologized first, based on Mu Rochuan's attitude, Sir Jojo would have flared up and punished her for insubordination. Now that Mu Qingya had taken the initiative, if she continued to harp on that small matter, it would appear that she wasn't magnanimous enough. Arba coldly curled his lips and nodded at Mu Qingya. It's indeed time to discipline the young ladies of the Mu family's first branch. If you continue to spoil them like this, they will end up hurting themselves in the end. Not everyone is as good-natured as this crown princess. She said indifferently, "If you meet a powerful consort and she doesn't care about anything, she will whip you. What can you do to her?" Mu Qingya nodded awkwardly. "The crown princess is right. I'm not in the mood to eat any more after being disturbed by you guys again and again." Arba threw his chopsticks and stood up. Emolienne also stood up. She casually pulled out a thin rabbit fur cloak and draped it over Arba. Her fingers moved, loosely tying a knot for her. He didn't even look at Mu Qingya, who was standing at the door, and said flatly, "Madam, please go back." Mu Qingya bowed slightly and then couldn't help but say, "I hope that Your Highness and the Crown Princess will reconsider today's matter. For the sake of the two elders, please take the time to go home." With that, she didn't continue to pester them. She bowed to the two of them again and then turned to walk out holding Nanny Cho's hand. Arba glanced at her departing figure. "It seems that the first branch hasn't been doing well recently." He sneered. "How could it be good?" Chapter 32:52. Ever since the first branch paid that compensation, the days of the Mu family's first branch, from the masters to the servants, had become difficult. In the past, the servants of the first branch would receive a generous reward every 3 to 5 days. In the entire Mu family, the treatment of the first branch's servants was the best. The patriarch and the first madam were very generous. Even the servants of the first branch, when they walked in the Mu residence, they also walked with their heads held high and their footsteps carried the wind. But ever since they collected that compensation and paid it all to the crown princess, the first branch's life began to decline. The first branch's days took a nosedive, and could never return to the past. Yesterday, it was said that the talented and intelligent young master of the second branch had returned home, and all the servants of the second branch were given meat to eat and wine to drink. The reward was also not small, and everyone received 2 to 10 spirit coins. The servants of the first branch were envious to death. Usually, it was only others who envied their first branch, unlike now. The servants of the second and third branches, although they didn't laugh in front of them, they were secretly laughing behind their backs. Emolienne smiled and took her little wife's hand, pulling her outside. We've already paid out so many spirit coins and supplies. How can we have spare money to pay that rich man? Naturally, our days won't be too good. Humph, Mu Jingfeng definitely can't come up with a good gift for the old master's birthday this time. That's why this person has set his sights on us, wanting to invite us home to support the scene. Prince Emo slightly raised his eyebrows and said with a smile that wasn't a smile, "What gift should we give the old master? We'll talk about it when the time comes." There were still 10 days before the old master's birthday. What was the hurry? Prince Emo smiled and nodded. "And then let's go back to the palace first." The little guy tugged at his sleeve. "Have the people sent to inquire about Jing Minyao returned?" "Don't worry, I don't think they've returned to their clan's land yet. We'll go and ask in 2 days." Arbor nodded. Thinking of the Pango clan's treasure, she couldn't help but secretly plan to find time to sneak into the Pango clan's territory. So, how could she have so much time to go back and chat with the Mu family? Before evening, Prince Emo was invited to the Emperor's study to discuss important matters. Not long after, Arbor received news that the Vice Minister of the Supreme Court, Zhang Hang, had made a great contribution. They brought some people to the cellar of a rice shop in the Eastern Street Market and killed 2 mutated undead hags. This incident had spread throughout the entire Dragon Flame City. Everyone's expression changed at the mention of this monster. The Crown Prince began to get busy, having his subordinates explain the scourge of the corpse bug to the entire Jingdo. As soon as the Imperial Court's document was posted on the square, it caused a huge uproar. Fortunately, the Crown Prince had sent people to stand guard before the announcement to explain to the public that the risk of the zombie disaster was still manageable. Ignorance meant that when danger came, you didn't even know what was going on. Since they already knew that Tianyun was about to launch a large-scale operation, they naturally had to spread the news of the dangers so that everyone would be on high alert. Some families with sensitive information had already known about this matter. Now that the Imperial Court had made a public announcement, they weren't surprised. Some of the ordinary civilians, on the other hand, were in a constant state of panic. But when they thought that the current situation was still within the control of the Imperial Court, the uneasiness in their hearts calmed down a little. Chapter 3253. At least for now, there was basically no danger inside or outside Dragon Flame City. Third young Master Fu stood guard in front of the notice board with his men. When he saw the crowd clamoring, he said coldly, "This matter is still under control. The Imperial Court informed everyone first for the sake of your safety. Some important information about zombies will be posted on this notice board in the future. While warning everyone to be vigilant, we will also continue to teach everyone some basic strategies to deal with zombies." Although some people were terrified, they agreed and understood the Imperial Court's actions. Many people said, "Everyone, don't panic. Since the Imperial Court has announced this matter, there will definitely be a series of corresponding preventive measures in the future. At least our city is still safe for now. We have to be more careful when we leave the city in the future." Safe? Didn't we catch 2 mutated zombies in the basement of the rice shop? Haven't we already caught them? Third Fu raised his hand to suppress the crowd's argument and said indifferently, "The Imperial Court has recently recruited a large number of able-bodied men to prepare to build large defensive fortifications in the outer city. Starting from our Dragon Flame City, we will gradually expand and build outwards. As long as our city is as strong as an iron bucket, we can believe that no monster can break it." Mr. Fu is right. I believe the Imperial Court will definitely protect us. Everyone started talking at once. Many people expressed their belief in the Imperial Court's decision. Naturally, a small number of people still felt very terrified and were already thinking of ways to stockpile some rice. At that time, if the world really became turbulent, they might not even be able to eat their fill. At this moment, Third Fu said, "His Highness the Crown Prince has already ordered that the prices of all rice shops and grain shops must remain the same. Once you find that a merchant is taking advantage of the situation to raise prices, you can immediately report it to the capital office. You will be rewarded with a certain amount of silver. The imperial court will fine the shops that deliberately raise prices and take a series of targeted measures. When everyone heard this, the panic in their hearts finally subsided. Did this mean that His Highness the Crown Prince had already taken precautions and considered many aspects of many things? Everyone, don't feel afraid, and there's no need to rush to buy things like food and hoard them. Our treasury is abundant and resources are abundant. As long as you are willing to work, you won't starve. Tomorrow at 7 a.m., the Eastern Palace will open the granary to distribute food. Those over 60, as well as the elderly and children under the age of 10, will be able to receive a portion of the relief allowance. The whole city can participate. Everyone cheered. Their hearts, which had just sunk, were slightly encouraged again. When Fu San saw this, he took the opportunity to say, "His Highness means that everyone should be as vigilant as possible. If you find any strange people or strange things around you, you can report them to the capital office. Those who make a report will be rewarded handsomely." "Yes. We'll be careful in the future." "Yes, yes. Everyone, be careful." The imperial study room was brightly lit. As your Highness can see, the people in the city are not in chaos. The one who spoke was the Right Minister, Gao Baran, who was looking at Prince Mo with appreciation. Before this matter was discussed and publicized, many old officials were against it. He felt that once this matter was made known to the public, it would definitely cause chaos in the world and even cause unrest. But it turned out that His Highness was right. Chapter 3254. Seeing that Tian Yun was about to make a move, it was a disregard for human life to suppress all the fatal news and not announce it. Only when the people were on their guard could they ensure safety to the greatest extent. The entire Dragon Flame City would be filled with spies from the imperial court. Once they discovered something unknown, the capital office would receive the news immediately. This was the most appropriate method. "Minister Zhang, you did well this time." The emperor sat behind the desk and nodded at Heng with a serious expression. Heng's heart was in turmoil. Hearing the emperor's words, he hurriedly cupped his hands and bowed. "Reporting to your Majesty, this time, if His Highness the Crown Prince had not sent his personal guards and Purple Forest guards, this matter would not have been resolved so easily. Who would have known that such a terrifying stronghold was hidden in the East Street Market? These few days, the entire city must be under martial law and searched carefully. That eunuch should not be the only one who came into contact with this rice shop. We must not let the situation worsen." Mo Lien said. Chao Jieto nodded repeatedly at the side, carefully memorizing everything. When he returned, he would set up defenses and put the entire city on alert. At this moment, Zhang Shaoqing was full of admiration for His Highness the Crown Prince. He was now certain that when KKD Pavilion shopkeeper who mentioned the East Street Market, the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess might have already come to a conclusion. That was why His Highness had specially sent a team of experts to follow him to search the East Street Market. He still remembered that His Highness had told him that there was a big surprise in front of him. Wasn't this a surprise and a fright at the same time? Zhang Shaoqing exhaled and said to the Emperor, "Your Majesty, this time in the East Street Market, not only were 2 corpse puppets found in the cellar of the rice shop, there were also several special ability users." "Oh." Mo Luxing raised his handsome eyebrows slightly and asked in a low voice, "They were all captured?" Heng nodded. That young and steady face of his revealed a rare trace of faint joy. Thanks to the help of His Highness' personal guards, all 4 special ability users were captured. 2 of them were strength-type special ability users, and 1 was defense-type. There was also a speed-type special ability user who almost got away, but fortunately, we had a lot of people outside, so we were able to catch him. Mo Luxing nodded. "What are these special ability users doing in the cellar?" "Did Tian Yun send someone to stay behind?" Gao Baran asked. "Milord, there is something you don't know. 3 of them are indeed guards, but one of them is a defensive type. When we found him, he was in a cylindrical container. His entire body is soaked in medicinal liquid, as if he is undergoing a transformation." Everyone looked at each other in dismay. Galbaran pondered for a few seconds and said, "But His Highness said before that the night-caw birds spread the corpse poison to the outside world on rainy days. The corpse poison is only effective against ordinary people. That is to let a portion of the ordinary people awaken to become people with special abilities, while the others fail to awaken and become zombies." Emolien nodded. "It is indeed so. Then why is this person who has already awakened a special ability soaking in the medicinal liquid? Could it be that Tian Yun still has a kind of medicine that can enhance the ability of special ability users?" Emolien declined to comment. Tian Yun's goal was now clear at a glance. It thinks it's the heavenly Tao. Chapter 3255. Since ordinary people can be turned into superhumans, why can't this group of people be further transformed? Emolien said indifferently, "Give the superhuman soaked in the medicine barrel to me." "Your Majesty, Your Majesty!" Hu Dequan jogged in and said anxiously, "The Chancellor of the Supreme Court sent a message saying that the defense-type superhuman locked up in the dungeon suddenly spontaneously combusted. In the end, all that was left was a smear of black ash. Nothing was left." Emo Lusheng said coldly, "Let's go and take a look. Crown Princess, Matriarch Mu has sent a letter and invites you to admire the flowers in New South Garden tomorrow." When Saishio walked in, the little Crown Princess had just come out of the bath. She was lazily leaning on a chaise lounge, taking some fish food and feeding a tank of nimble little fish. Hearing this, she couldn't help but turn to look at Saishio. Saishio hurriedly stepped forward and presented a red letter with both hands. The little Crown Princess flipped through it and nodded. "Get ready. We'll leave early tomorrow and take a look at Precious Painting Workshop. Crown Prince Consort, what if old Madam invites you to live in the Mu family's courtyard?" Kai Xiu stopped halfway through her words. The little Crown Princess understood what she meant. If Matriarch personally invited her, it would be hard for her to refuse. But if she lived in the Mu family, Jojo's Lotus would definitely follow her back. Morning Court was inconvenient and she didn't get along with the Mu family's first branch. When the time came, she would have to live in chaos again. She didn't want to wrong Jojo's Lotus. "We'll talk about it later," Abba said indifferently. "When the time comes, reject Matriarch's invitation if you can. If you can't, delay it for a few days." The Crown Prince was busy until midnight before returning to the Eastern Palace. When the palace servants saw the Crown Prince's carriage arrive, they hurriedly moved. The hall was instantly brightly lit. Sir Jojo had already slept for 2 nights while waiting for this fellow to come back. When he opened his eyes to find that he was back, he looked at the time and saw that it was almost midnight. He immediately rolled on the bed unhappily and got up. "Your father really doesn't know how to dote on people. What time is it?" Emolien went to see her as soon as he came back. When he found that she was awake, he smiled and hugged her. "I'm so hungry." Mr. Jojo was dissatisfied with the Emperor. "You're not even giving me supper? Crown Princess, did you call for me?" Someone suddenly poked his head in through the window. The little Crown Princess was speechless. The Crown Prince, who didn't know how to name things, was speechless. "Cough, I didn't call you," the little Crown Princess said expressionlessly. "Oh, forget it. Tell the kitchen to stop working and go to sleep." "Okay." Xiaoyi shrank his neck and disappeared. Xiaoyi, Situ Yi, Liang Qingqing, and the others had followed Aber to Dragonflame City and did not return to the sect. However, the few of them were quite worried. They suspected that the people of their sect would send people to pursue them and question them. It was said that Fire Smelting City and Ice Sealed City had been at odds with each other for hundreds of years. The disciples of the sect would fight for the slightest thing and there would be 300 battles. Every year, Fire Smelting City and Ice Sealed City would have a competition. Now that senior brother Situ and the others had collectively run away, the sect would probably not let them off. However, they had finally gathered together, so how could they bear to part just like that? Besides, the journey to the mystic realm was full of danger. They didn't even have time to talk to Sir Jojo. Of course, They had to come back with her and play with her for a while. Abba took out the all-purpose food box from his inner world. Chapter 32:56. It was already the middle of the night. Abba brought 2 light side dishes and a bowl of noodles for Emolien to eat. Prince Mo, the poor guy, had been tormented the whole night and was already impatient. Actually, he wasn't hungry at all, but he wanted to act cute in front of his little wife and see how worried she would be for him. "Jojo, Dad is too annoying." Crown Prince couldn't help but complain. "Tomorrow, I have to go to the East Street Market personally to check it out." Abba raised his brows slightly. "What happened to the people we caught?" "They all spontaneously combusted." Crown Prince pursed his lips, his face full of disdain. "When we received the Supreme Court official's message, Dad dragged me over. When we arrived at the dungeon, we happened to see the other 3 superpowered people spontaneously combusting. Not only did they make a mess of the dungeon, but a few of the prisoners almost escaped." Abba couldn't help but frown. "Why spontaneously combusted? Do they have the fire attribute among their superpowers?" Abba asked curiously. Emolien shook her head. "No. But we haven't been able to find out what happened yet. It must have something to do with drugs." Abba couldn't help but assert. Crown Prince Mo nodded upon hearing this. "I also think so. It's just that when we caught them back then, we had already searched their entire bodies and didn't leave anything behind." Abba glanced at Prince Mo. "What about space?" Emolien paused. "But they are superpowered people and don't have an inner world." "I'm not talking about an inner world." Abba thought for a moment and said, "This is also one of the superpowers, a space superpower." "One of them might have a space superpower." Emolien suddenly understood. "So one of them put the spontaneously combusting drug in this space?" "Heh, I've never seen such a superpower." "It's rare," Abba said. "It appears occasionally, but the probability is 1 in 1,000. Emolien put down her chopsticks and nodded with a sigh. "These guys are really hard to guard against." Prince Mo was in a bad mood after wasting half a day without any results. Abba saw that he was a little depressed, so he reached out and stroked the back of his hand. "Okay, don't be depressed. Go to the market tomorrow and walk around. Who knows, maybe you'll get something. Why do you think they're hiding in the cellar of the rice store and don't come out to harm people?" This was also what Abba found strange. Judging from the size of that small stronghold, it was likely that they had been lurking in the market for a long time. If it weren't for the fact that the palace servant had gone to buy rice and had done something else, he would have been unlucky enough to be scratched. If he hadn't acted up after returning to the palace and attracted everyone's attention, who knew when this small stronghold would have been discovered? Maybe they don't want to appear in front of the public so early. Abba pondered for a moment and said, "This accident might have disrupted Tian Yun's plan." Emolien raised her eyebrows slightly. "No matter what, the entire Dragon Flame City needs to be investigated. No matter how much manpower and energy it took, they had to carry out a carpet search. They had to remove all the small strongholds that Tian Yun had placed in the city. We haven't gone out shopping since we came back." The Crown Prince held his wife's hand regretfully. "Look, we don't have time tomorrow." "You're busy tomorrow, and so am I." The little Crown Princess glanced at him and raised her hand to pat his head comfortingly. Chapter 32:57. Emolien didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he saw her acting as if she was petting a pet dog. "Jojo." He moved closer to her and rubbed against her body. "Where are you going tomorrow?" "Old Madam has invited me to the new South Garden." Abba felt a headache coming on when she thought of this. She raised her hand and pressed her small forehead. She couldn't help but feel a little more conflicted. She had to respect Old Madam's invitation. Otherwise, she would seem too unreasonable. Moreover, judging from the current situation, Old Master Mu treated her quite well. If she rejected Old Mistress Mu's invitation, Wouldn't the Mu family be gossiping about her? They would definitely say that she didn't care about old Master Mu. Emolien pulled her into his embrace with a smile and poked her small nose with his finger. Remember to wear your crimson battle uniform. Don't be afraid. I'll cover for you if you make any trouble. Arbor chuckled and rolled her eyes at him. What about you? Me? I'm going to fight tomorrow too. I'm going to wear a red battle suit too. Emolien mumbled. I'm going to wear red, and I'm going to be as pretty as a rotten peach blossom. Mr. Jojo's eyes curved and he tapped his forehead with a finger. Go take a bath. Emolien got up with a smile and walked to the bathtub. He turned around and winked at her. Wife, if we make any trouble together, I'll cover for us. How unlucky must your father be to have such a troublemaker like you? Arbor pursed her lips and nodded in agreement. The night passed quietly. The next day, when Mr. Jojo opened his eyes, Prince Mo had already left the East Palace to run some errands. The little girl rolled around on the bed and sat up. She looked expressionlessly at Kai Xiu, who came in with a basin of water and happened to see her rolling around on the bed. There was a hint of a smile on the girl's calm face. Don't think that Sir Jojo couldn't tell. Change clothes. The young crown prince consort hopped off the bed. Kai Xiu quickly helped her put on her shoes. Crown princess, the floor is cold. It's very hot. The little crown princess didn't mind at all. She ran barefoot to the washstand. Kai Xiu hurriedly took the shoes and followed her. Crown princess, your feet are cold, put on the shoes first. Kai Chi came in with a group of people who were holding clothes and jewelry. She casually ordered, put them on the shelves first. Crown princess, Ni Chong Market's first batch of clothing and jewelry has arrived. Kai Chi's small mouth opened as she chirped. It's worthy of being called Ni Chong Market's clothes. The flowing cloud brocade is not only smooth to the touch, but also very cool to the touch. It's perfect for summer. In another 2 months, the scorching summer would arrive. Mr. Jojo expressionlessly looked at them. For a level 13 Great Spirit Master, whether it was hot or cold, it didn't make any difference. After freshening up and changing into a bright red battlesuit, Mr. Jojo looked down at his own outfit. Did Ni Chong Market make a red outer garment for me this time? They made several. Oh, that's good. She only had one set of battle clothes, so it was a bit too monotonous. Did they embroider lotus flowers? Kai Chi's mouth twitched as she tried to suppress the urge to laugh. She repeatedly nodded and said, Ni Chong Market's clothes were made according to Crown Princess's instructions. They embroidered lotus flowers on the corners of the clothes. The little Crown Princess' mouth slightly curved as she nodded with a stoic face. It's definitely not as good as mine. Chapter 3258. Kai Chi almost burst out in laughter. Oh my, our little Crown Prince consort, where did you get such great confidence from? The few of them escorted the little Crown Princess out the door. The carriage was already waiting outside. After Arbor boarded the carriage and lowered the curtains, the carriage moved along the red walls and glazed tiles towards the palace gates. As it was still early, Arbor followed the plan and got someone to drive the carriage to Changle Street. Unexpectedly, the carriage was blocked at the intersection of Changle North Street before it could even make a turn. The driver was Ao Yi, who had escorted the little Crown Princess out. It had been a long time since he drove the Crown Princess's carriage. He felt a little excited as he drove the carriage today. Seeing that the carriage was blocked, he jumped down from the carriage and ran forward for a while. Not long after, he turned back and said, Crown Princess, the road ahead is completely blocked. Why are all the noble ladies of the imperial capital leaving on the same day? Kai Chi muttered. She recognized the emblems on the carriage. They belonged to the right Prime Minister's family and Assistant Minister Zhou's family. Arbor frowned. What's wrong? Crown Princess, please wait a moment. Kai Chi jumped down from the carriage and ran to the front to ask around. Not long after, the young lady ran back with a strange expression. She glanced at the little Crown Princess and seemed to want to say something. Speak. Arbor couldn't help but urge her. Crown Princess, do you know why they are here? They are here to bid for the beautifying pill at Precious Painting Workshop. Kai Chi looked at the little Crown Princess strangely. It is said that the madam of a wealthy family in the city sent servants to sleep at the entrance of Precious Painting Workshop every day to wait for the Crown Princess to come and stop you. Stay Up Late raised his head and looked at the emblem on the carriage. It was the emblem of the Eastern Palace of the imperial family. It was very eye-catching, and with so many people coming and going, even a blind person would notice it. Sure enough, in less than 3 minutes, quite a few people crowded over and shouted, "Has the Crown Prince Consort graced us with her presence? Crown Princess, I'm from Prime Minister Gao's residence. Madame Gao requests an audience with the Crown Princess. Crown Princess, this lowly one is from Imperial Censor Wang's residence. My wife has come to pay her respects to the Crown Princess." Suddenly, the originally congested road became even more crowded. At this moment, the carriage couldn't even turn around and leave, let alone move forward. Kai Chi and Kai Xiu both rolled up the carriage's curtains, and everyone saw the stoic-faced young Crown Prince Consort sitting upright in the carriage. Her red clothes fluttered in the wind, and her face was as cold as snow. Her small snow-white face appeared exceptionally cold in her red brocade robe, and her gaze was so indifferent that it made people slightly apprehensive. Crown Princess, Crown Princess. This lowly one is a servant of the Liu family. My mistress wishes to have a chat with the Crown Princess. The price of the beautifying pill is easy to negotiate. The Gao family's servant turned around and glared fiercely at the servant. What was this? A woman from a merchant family dared to come up and fight with Prime Minister Gao's wife over the beautifying pill? The little Crown Princess looked at these people expressionlessly. Until the shopkeeper of Precious Painting Workshop shouted excitedly, "Make way, please make way, everyone. Make way, don't block the road, please make way." The shopkeeper was quite agile, and he squeezed through the crowd with great difficulty and arrived in front of Arber's carriage. When he saw the little Crown Princess, he couldn't help but cry tears of joy. "Crown Princess, you've finally returned." Chapter 32:59. The shopkeeper had been having a hard time recently. When he went out, he was chased by people asking for the beautifying pill. When he returned home, he was chased to his door and forced to hand over the beautifying pill with a kitchen knife. No matter where he went, he was surrounded by people. From earnest persuasion to neurotic threats, everyone had tried all kinds of methods. But who knew that the shopkeeper's heart was suffering more than anyone else? The little Crown Princess was the one who said that the beautifying pill was limited in supply. When she left him 3 pills. The price of each pill had been raised to 5 million spirit coins, but there were still many noblewomen and noble ladies who rushed over like ducks. These noblewomen couldn't buy the beautifying pill, so they had to settle for the beautifying cream. The beautifying cream was also limited in quantity. Thus, all the other precious jewelry in Zhanhua Workshop were sold out. It was almost to the point of being out of stock. The shopkeeper had been experiencing both pain and happiness recently. When he saw the little Crown Princess, his eyes were brimming with tears as if he had seen his own mother. He cried and rushed over, wishing that he could hug her thigh. "Crown Princess, I beg you. Do you still have the beautifying pill? Release a few more. Otherwise, I really can't continue living like this." Kai Chi, Kai Xiu, Ao Yi, and the others looked at the old shopkeeper with black lines on their heads. Sir Jojo's face was expressionless as he glanced at the old shopkeeper. "Are they all sold out?" "Almost all the unrelated products in Zhanhua Workshop have been sold out." When the shopkeeper said this, he didn't mind the jealousy of the other shops. On the entire Chang'an North Street, the Zhanhua Workshop was not the only shop that sold jewelry and makeup products. But every day, Zhanhua Workshop was crowded with people. The other shops could only look at them with envy. The little Crown Princess nodded. Suddenly, a cry was heard. A plump madam, who was decked out in gold and silver and had a head full of pearls and emeralds, squeezed her way through the crowd. She pounced onto the carriage and wanted to hug the young Crown Prince Consort's thigh. Crown Princess, I beg you, sell me a beautifying pill. I can pay any price." The fat woman's body was very large and her movements were very slow. Naturally, the little Crown Princess could not be caught by her legs. When Lord Jojo saw her rushing towards him, he immediately shrunk his arms and legs and dodged into the carriage. Stay Up Late stepped forward and used his sword to stop the woman's inappropriate actions. He frowned and scolded, "Speak properly. Don't get physical." Crown Princess. The young woman was from the Lu family. "Where is Princess Kang's eldest sister-in-law?" That plump woman hastily exclaimed, "I beg you, Crown Princess. For the sake of Princess Consort Kong, please sell this humble woman a beautifying pill." The effects of the beautifying pill were too good. This story started when Princess Consort Kong proved that the effects of the beautifying pill were extraordinarily good, and Imperial Censor Zhong's wife gritted her teeth and spent 1,000,000 spirit coins to buy a beautifying pill. There was no need for the next day. She took the pill on the spot and the beautifying effect gradually appeared. Madame Li, who was with her, regretted it so much that her intestines turned green. Even if the beautifying pill was restored to its original price of 2,000,000 spirit coins the next day, Madame Li still hurriedly bought it. These two madams, together with Princess Kang's trio, became the brand of Zhanhua Workshop's beautifying pill. Who else could match the effects of Zhanhua Workshop's beautifying pill? Not only did it beautify one's face, but it also reduced one's weight. One would look 10 years younger after taking it, and one could see their skin becoming younger every day. Thus, the shopkeeper sold the remaining 2 beautifying pills at the sky-high price of 4,000,000 and 5,000,000 spirit coins respectively. Even then, the supply could not meet the demand. Every day, people would block the door and force them to buy. Chapter 3260. Madame He of the Lu family, who was dressed in gold and silver, used her fat body to try to push away Ao Yi, who was blocking her way. She mumbled, "Hey, young man, please make way. Don't block the way. Make way, make way, make way. Make way, my ass." Ao Yi narrowed his eyes and stood straight in front of the madam. He said impatiently, "Who dares to make a ruckus in front of the Crown Princess? How rude." Chow Chow expressionlessly looked at the surging tide of people outside the carriage. Her pair of clear and cold eyes, from time to time, wandered around the faces of several people. Weren't they a little too excited? It was as if they had been injected with chicken blood. What happened to your dignity and manners as upper-class ladies? Me? I'm Princess Kang's sister-in-law. That nay, he repeatedly used her fat to push against the sword in front of her and shouted, "Crown Prince Consort, we're relatives. No matter what, you have to sell it to me first. Ha, Crown Prince Consort." Noisy. The young Crown Princess looked impatiently at the fat madam. She then got out of the carriage. Ao Yi, Kai Xiu, and Kai Chi quickly blocked the crowd coming from the left and right. They shouted, "Don't push. Everyone, back off." The young Crown Princess looked expressionlessly at the crowd that kept coming up and being pushed away by Ao Yi, Kai Xiu, and Kai Chi. She said coldly, "If you continue to push, you will all be blacklisted." A upper-class lady quickly called out to her servant, "Wang Kai, stop pushing. Come back, come back." They had heard of the blacklist before. It was said that the young Crown Princess was a willful and reckless person. All the businesses under her had a blacklist. It was said that there was even a portrait. As long as you were on the blacklist, you were not allowed to enter any of the shops under the Crown Princess name. Even if you had money, you would not be able to buy anything from the Crown Princess shop. She was just that willful. Chow Mu walked towards the entrance of Precious Painting Workshop. As she walked past the crowd, everyone subconsciously retreated to the sides, leaving a wide path for her to pass through. For some reason, the young Crown Prince Consort looked harmless despite her young age. However, these people couldn't help but shiver from the bottom of their hearts. He always felt that the little Crown Princess was not to be trifled with. If he made her unhappy, who knew what would happen? The shopkeeper welcomed the little Crown Princess in with a smile. He took out the account book and happily talked about the profits for the past month. His old face was smiling like a chrysanthemum. Crown Princess, you didn't see it. The rush to buy goods is almost like the rush to buy goods for the new year. Crown Princess, the reputation of our precious painting workshop's beautifying pill has been completely established. As long as we replenish the stock, the beautifying pills will probably sell like crazy this month. The little Crown Princess shook her head. It's already the 3rd of this month. I'm not selling it. Starting from next month, 2 beautifying pills will be sold on the 1st of every month. The highest bidder wins. If there are any special circumstances, we'll talk about it then. The shopkeeper's old eyes lit up as if a series of little stars were about to float out. Oh my dear Crown Princess! How could such a young girl have such a good business mind? In this way, their precious painting workshop would auction 2 beautifying pills on the 1st day of every month. Regardless of whether they did other business or not, these beautifying pills would be enough to earn a lot of money. In addition, we will sell 10 boxes of beautifying ointment every month. The starting price will not be lower than 500,000 spirit coins. Chapter 3261. The young Crown Princess pondered for a moment before saying, "Wait until I make a new beautifying product. We'll talk about it then." In the future, she might even be able to pair it with the longevity pill and sell it together with the beautifying pill. At that time, the effects would definitely be very good. The shopkeeper nodded repeatedly and cheerfully recorded everything the young Crown Princess said in a small notebook so that he could check it from time to time in the future. The expressionless young Crown Princess gazed indifferently at this old shopkeeper, but she couldn't suppress the collapse in her heart. Was this fellow going to record every word she said in a book and worship it as if it was an imperial edict? There was a hustle and bustle outside the door. None of the upper-class ladies waiting outside left. They were probably waiting for the latest news from Precious Painting Workshop. The shopkeeper closed his small notebook and said with a beaming face, "Crown Princess, this subordinate will post a notice to inform them now." The little stoic indifferently hummed in agreement and glanced at the shopkeeper, who swiftly dashed out the door to attend to the matter. The people outside didn't have to wait too long. In less than 5 minutes, Precious Painting Workshop's latest notice was posted. When everyone saw the notice and found out that the young Crown Princess wasn't planning to sell the beautifying pill today, how could they be willing to leave the matter at that? That Madame Lu was the first to shout, herding a group of servants to break down the door and enter. "I want to see the Crown Princess. I want to see the Crown Princess." Madame Lu shouted harshly. After being blocked at the door, her face that resembled a white steamed bun instantly became somewhat disorderly and contorted. "I don't care, I must see the Crown Princess." What kind of joke was this? She had waited for almost half a month for that beautifying pill, but now they actually said they weren't going to sell it this month and had to wait until the 1st of next month? This was simply a bolt from the blue. How could it not make her stomp her feet and howl in indignation? Xiao Mu sipped her tea while sitting inside Precious Painting Workshop. Her expression was a bit nonchalant. The ruckus outside was really too much. A single beautifying pill could make this group of women chase after it to this extent. It could be seen that her business acumen was quite good. But then again, which girl didn't pay attention to her appearance? With Princess Consort Kong, Foreign Jiang, and the other living signboards, how could people not be envious and their hearts beat faster? They scrambled like a flock of ducks to buy her beautifying pills. The little Crown Princess calmly took a sip of tea. When she saw the shopkeeper running back with a smug look on his face, she said calmly, "I've been too busy recently. Everyone in the shop has been working hard. Double the monthly salary." The shopkeeper's eyes lit up when he heard this, and the shop assistants were even more jubilant. Everyone hurried forward to thank him for the reward. The little Crown Princess jumped off the stool and walked out. "Let's go to New South Garden. Take care, Crown Prince Consort." The shopkeeper led a group of workers to escort her to the door, their faces wreathed in smiles. As soon as she saw Madame Lu, she saw her slightly misshapen round face squeezed through the open window. Madame Lu's expression was a bit sinister as she roared at her, "Crown Princess, Crown Princess. The little crown princess's eyes twitched for no reason. She maintained an expressionless face and continued to walk out the door. Other than this Madame Lu, who was more anxious than the rest, although the other madams of the officials were also anxious that they wouldn't be able to buy the beautifying pill, at least they didn't go as far as Madame Lu, completely exposing their ugly selves in front of others. Chapter 3262. The young crown princess indifferently swept a glance over Madame Lu Ha, then walked out of the crowd and boarded the carriage again. Madame Lu wanted to continue making a ruckus, but Aoyi impolitely pushed her aside. "Try making a ruckus again." Clang! The snow-white long sword appeared in front of Madame Lu for a moment. Madame Lu Ha was a coward. She immediately retreated several steps in fright and didn't dare to make another sound. When the young crown princess carriage left, the shopkeeper hurriedly tried to smooth things over. He smiled apologetically at the madams and young misses. "It's not like our humble store doesn't sell beautifying pills. It's just that the beautifying pills craftsmanship is rather complicated and wondrous. The crown princess worked hard to obtain one, so she can only make 2 a month at most. Naturally, we can't sell them every day." When everyone heard this, realization dawned on them. Most of them expressed understanding, but they didn't know that the shopkeeper, this sly old fox, was just casually making things up. Although the old shopkeeper didn't know if the young crown princess was making the beautifying pills as difficult as he said, he knew that he had some understanding. But from his understanding, the young crown prince consort seemed to have quite a number of these beautifying pills ready-made, and sell them slowly. There was no rush. "Prepare the carriage," Madame Lu shouted in exasperation. "Go to Prince Kang's estate. Hurry!" Madame Lu sternly yelled at a group of servants. The carriage driver was so frightened that his hand trembled, and he hurriedly lashed out with his whip. The crowd was already squeezed together, so when she recklessly barged through the crowd, many of the upper-class madams couldn't help but cry out in alarm. The 2 servants dodged left and right, almost getting hit by the carriage. Seeing the Lu family's carriage rush out of the crowd and leave, the 2 servants, who managed to avoid a calamity, couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. Madame Lu directly ordered the carriage to arrive at Prince Kang's estate, wanting to barge in without a care. The gatekeeper naturally recognized this barbaric madam. When he saw her, his expression immediately became very unsightly. This madam did not care whether the other party was going to pass on the message or not. She directly got off the carriage and quickly rushed in. The bodyguard guarding the door stopped her, and she even raised her hand to slap him in the face. Then, she quickly walked inside, crying and shouting, "Lan Yun, your sister-in-law won't be able to live this time." Lan Yun. Princess Kong was chatting happily with Imperial Censor Zhong's wife and Imperial Censor Li's wife in the side hall. When she heard this commotion, the veins on her forehead bulged. Sure enough, that uneducated Madame Lu didn't care if there were guests in other people's homes and rashly barged in. She rolled to Princess Consort Kang's side and wailed, "Lan Yun, help your sister-in-law. Help me ask the little crown princess for a beautifying pill." Imperial Censor Zhong's wife and Imperial Censor Li's wife both became embarrassed and exchanged glances. They didn't know whether they should leave immediately or continue to treat Madame Lu Ha as heir. Madame Lu Ha wept and wiped her eyes as she cried out, "You didn't see the little crown princess's stoic face. She's so cold even to her relatives at home. She doesn't give you any face at all, treating your sister-in-law like a radish as a vegetable." Princess Kang's expression instantly chilled, and she bluntly shouted, "What kind of relative are you to the crown princess?" This Madame Lu Ha was usually extremely short-sighted at home and liked to take advantage of people everywhere. Now, she actually ran to the little crown princess to embarrass her. Chapter 3263. Shameless to the extreme. Seeing Princess Kong lose her temper, Lu Ha was startled and couldn't help but shrink her neck. Naturally, she was somewhat afraid of her sister-in-law. Her sister-in-law had been able to hold the position of Princess Kong for decades. Needless to say, She was definitely the most accomplished person in the Liu family in several generations. For a merchant family like the Liu family to be able to raise such a young lady, wasn't there smoke coming from their ancestors? Usually, they relied on this princess consort Kong, so the Liu family's days were very good. In just a few decades, the Liu family had risen from a merchant family to a first-class family in Dragon Flame City. Naturally, this Princess Kang's contributions couldn't go unnoticed. Liu He didn't dare to offend her and could only smile apologetically. Sister-in-law doesn't know how to speak. Lan Yun, don't be angry. Sister-in-law, for the past few days, I've been lining up in front of the precious painting workshop early in the morning just to buy a beautifying pill. I didn't expect to not only fail to buy the pill, but also get angry. Sister-in-law, I misspoke just now. Liu He was thick-skinned. It didn't take long for her to get used to Princess Kang's cold face. She chuckled and tried to find something to say. Lan Yun, I don't ask for much. It's not like our Liu family can't afford it. Liu had gestured at her bloated figure and said with a distressed expression, I just want to improve my figure. On the side, Sensa Zhong's wife pursed her lips and didn't laugh out loud with good manners. She only used the excuse of drinking tea to cover the smile at the corner of her mouth. Lan Yun was speechless. She glanced at her sister-in-law and sighed. Why are you in such a hurry? You've been like this for decades, and my eldest brother has never despised you. Isn't your position as the mistress of the household very stable after so many years? My eldest brother is already a few decades old. As long as you're not muddle-headed and act like you're the mistress of the household, would he divorce you? Liu He couldn't help but ridicule inwardly. Of course you'd say that. The old prince is in a high position and has been loyal to you for so many years. Even if you haven't given birth to a child in these decades, the old prince has never married a concubine to warm the house. One can imagine how comfortable your life is. Your big brother isn't that kind of person. There are so many beautiful wives and concubines in the Liu family. It's hard to guarantee that your eldest brother won't be confused for a moment and be bewitched by a vixen, causing her to lose her position in the Liu He family. What's more, you've become so slim and young. Of course, the old prince will love you so much that he can't part with you. Of course, you're not in a hurry. Liu He complained in her heart, but she didn't dare to show it on her face. She only sobbed and said, Younger sister-in-law, take pity on sister-in-law. If his sister-in-law continued to gain weight, she would become extremely fat. Sob, sob, sob. Since you have a good relationship with the little crown princess, why don't you ask for a beautifying pill for me? Sister-in-law can even pay you double. Lan Yun was annoyed. With a cold face, she said, You go back first. I'll go and ask about the situation first. Sister-in-law can only beg you. Liu He wiped her tears and looked at her pitifully. Lan Yun was both annoyed and amused. He was already a few decades old, but he was still as emotional as a child. When she thought about her sister-in-law's current situation, she couldn't help but sympathize with her. After all, she had known her sister-in-law for several decades. No matter how unbearable she was, she still had some true feelings. Lan Yun nodded and said indifferently, This consort understands. You go back first. Liu He couldn't help but be overjoyed. Chapter 32-64. She understood her sister-in-law's character the best. She looked like a hard-hearted person, but her heart was actually very soft. If she nodded, it meant that there was a chance. Liu He happily went out and bumped into Liu Yiran, who had just returned from shopping. Liu He hurriedly greeted her with a smile and called out, Ran, Liu Yiran merely glanced at her, then turned and left. The smile on Liu He's face instantly froze. Looking at her daughter's departing figure, she felt somewhat uncomfortable. In the past, when Liu Yiran was still in the Liu family, she was raised by the matriarch. At that time, she was closer to the matriarch than to her mother. She did not expect that ever since she was sent to Prince Kang's residence, her daughter's relationship with her became more and more distant. In Arbor, naturally, they did not know that Lu He had gone to Prince Kang's residence to cause such a ruckus. The little fellow sat in the carriage, sleepy all the way. After the carriage left Changal Avenue, it headed straight for New South Garden. The spirit stallion's steps were very fast, and it did not take long for it to reach the southern part of the city. New South Garden was on the adjacent street of Hua Chi Street. The carriage passed through an arch bridge, and in less than half an incense's time, it arrived at the entrance of a landscape garden. There were already people waiting there. When they saw the Eastern Palace's carriage, they hurriedly went forward to greet it. They respectfully bowed and carefully asked, "Can the Crown Princess carriage stop at the entrance?" "The matriarch and the rest are at the entrance of the garden right now." The young Crown Princess opened her eyes and nodded. Kai Xiu lifted the curtain and said, "Stop here." The servants who came to greet them were just about to move the pedals over when they saw the young Crown Princess had already jumped down from the carriage. She did not need anyone to help her. The servants raised their heads to look. They saw that there was not much expression on her snow-white face, and they could not help but feel a little apprehensive. Actually, for young ladies of noble families like them, no matter how high their cultivation level was, they would pretend to be delicate outside. When they got on or off the carriage, they basically had to show off and let the servants help them. The young Crown Princess was an honest person. She felt that she had not reached the age where she needed people to help her. "What are you waiting for?" Kai Chi had been following the little Crown Princess for a long time, and her movements had also begun to become nimble. Seeing the servants standing there foolishly, she couldn't help but glare at them. "Lead the way." "Ah, yes, yes." The several servants turned around and hurriedly said, "The old lady has come out." When Xiao Mu looked up, she saw a dozen or so upper-class madams and noble ladies, as well as several dozen maidservants, walking over while escorting a benevolent and good-natured old woman. The old woman's hair was white. Other than a few wrinkles at the corners of her eyes, her face was still very smooth. She wasn't tall at all, and her face was pale as if she had just recovered from a serious illness. She stared at Arbor with a faint smile. "Quickly come over and let grandmother take a look. Last time, I heard from your grandfather that you had returned. Who would have thought that I had been ill all this time and was afraid that my illness would pass on to you? With this delay, who would have thought that you would go to the Imperial Academy? I haven't seen you all this time." Mu Qingya supported the old lady and smiled gently. "Old madam, don't be sad. Look, isn't the Crown Princess here?" The old lady's face was filled with undisguised joy. She nodded repeatedly and walked toward Arbor shakily. Chapter 3265. 4. 865 The heart of a fist Arbor dared not let a sick old lady tire herself out. She hurriedly walked over and bowed to the old lady according to etiquette. Old Madam happily grabbed her hand and quickly took off a ring from her finger, stuffing it into Xiao Mu's hand. She said joyfully, "Xiao Xiao, this is grandmother's greeting gift to you. Take it. It's not a lot. It's just a little something from grandmother." Jojo felt that the ring was a little hot. She had mercilessly slapped the old lady's son in the face earlier. How could she accept the old lady's gift? Just as she was about to return the ring, the old lady put on a stern face and patted the back of her hand. "This is from grandmother. Just take it. It has nothing to do with your bastard father." Mu Qingya's expression instantly became a little awkward. "Old madam, please sit down first." "Why are you calling me old madam?" The old lady patted the back of Arbor's hand unhappily and said, "I'm your biological grandmother. You have to call me grandma. Quick, call me grandma." She was not an old man like Mu Tsong who could not swallow his pride. She did not want her granddaughter to call her old madam. She wanted her granddaughter to call her grandma. Arbor felt a little helpless. After spending a long time with this little girl, he could actually grasp her weakness. If she was gentle and kind to her, she would not be able to harden her heart and keep a straight face. On the contrary, the more he tried to force her, the more stubborn she would be and would not give in at all. Therefore, Arbor really could not put on a cold face in front of this amiable old lady. He could only helplessly call her grandmother. The old lady was overjoyed and corrected him repeatedly. Good grandson. Remember to call me grandma next time. Mu Qingya smiled and said, Old Madam and Miss Jojo really hit it off. This is probably what we call kinship. One look and I feel that they hit it off very well. Old Madam Mu smiled and nodded. Then, she corrected, according to seniority, Jojo should be the second in line. She's the second daughter of the Mu family. Yes. Mu Qingya was stunned for a moment before she hurriedly said with a smile, It's time to rearrange the seniority. When Mu Ro Yen heard this, she was so angry that smoke was about to rise from the top of her head. Previously, when she saw old Madam casually take off a space ring for Arbor, she was so jealous that she was about to go crazy. Now that she heard the old Madam's tone, was Arbor going to squeeze out her identity as the second miss of the Mu family in the future? How could this be? She couldn't help but shriek. Grandmother is really biased. She doesn't usually give us sisters a space ring as a greeting gift. Even big sister has never been treated so well. Mu Ro Xian's face was already very pale. When she heard Mu Ro Yen mention her face turned even paler. Mu Qingya frowned and glanced at Mu Ro Yen unhappily. Ro Yen, how can you speak to grandmother like that? Don't be so sarcastic. If you have something to say it properly. Mother, in grandmother's heart, Long Chuyun is her only daughter-in-law. Arbor is her only direct granddaughter. We all have to stand aside. Mu Ro Yen was so angry that she couldn't help but spit out her thoughts sourly. Mu Qingya shouted, Ro Yen, you're too rude. What nonsense are you spouting? Chapter 3266. Mu Ro Yen was flustered and exasperated. Mother, did I say something wrong? She just couldn't stand it. What right did they have to come so early in the morning and wait here to welcome this country bumpkin? Why did even his grandmother treat this village woman differently? She was also grandmother's biological granddaughter, okay? Why did she have to give way to this village woman who hadn't returned home for more than 10 years? Ro Yen, how can you be so rude to the crown princess? A gloomy reprimand came from behind the crowd. The second branch's Madame Chiu secretly smiled and used a handkerchief to wipe the corners of her mouth. She coldly watched the first branch's group of muddle-headed people making a ruckus in front of old Madame. What did they think that this ruckus would benefit the first branch? Didn't it just cause old Madame to despise them even more? Madame Chiu exchanged a glance with her daughter without batting an eyelid. She smiled and looked away. Following the sound of wheels, Shi Huixin, who was sitting in a wheelchair with a very gloomy expression, arrived. Concubine Shi had a green handkerchief tied around her head and combed all her hair inside. Her eyes were like the eyes of a poisonous snake, containing a bit of frightening moist coldness as she stared fixedly at her. Don't forget what kind of price you have to pay to offend the crown princess, Concubine Shi said coldly. I'm your example. I still have to thank the crown princess for not killing me. She saved this lowly concubine's life. It's just that I'm crippled. When Concubine Shi said the last 4 words, she gritted her teeth as if she was chewing on Arbor's flesh. Of course, if it was possible, Concubine Shi would have pounced on her and torn her apart. Sir Jojo glanced at her and said coldly, Men. Old Madame's eyelids twitched slightly, and a bad premonition arose in her heart. Stay Up Late jumped in front of Sir Jojo with a whoosh. He secretly suppressed the twitching corners of his mouth and bowed. This subordinate is here. A mere lowly concubine dares to be sarcastic in front of this crown princess. She's simply bold and presumptuous. Kill her. Everyone was dumbfounded. Shi Huixin's face was slightly distorted. She was also shocked in her heart. Cold sweat involuntarily dripped down her face. Seeing that Aoyi was about to make a move, Chiu Shi of the second branch pursed her lips and couldn't help but smile and lower her eyes. The first branch really had a wonderful show every day, one after another. It was just a matter of which one was better. You. Mu Ro Yen shrieked. You dare. Shut up. Mu Qingya saw that things were going in a strange direction and hurriedly scolded the concubine's daughter who only knew how to scream. She glared at Shi Huixin and her daughter mercilessly. He clearly knew that the little crown princess was someone who never played by the rules, so why did he have to rush over to find trouble with her? Did they really think that the little crown princess, who had just returned from studying at the royal school, would be kinder than before? This pair of brainless mother and daughter were simply looking for trouble. Mu Qingya took a deep breath and hurriedly reached out to block stay up late. She smiled apologetically at Arbor. Jojo, ever since concubine Shi's legs became inconvenient, her brain has also become muddled. Don't be calculative with her. The little crown princess looked coldly at Shi Huixin. I don't think she's muddled. She just hates this crown princess. Since she doesn't want to live such a good life, then let her die. Chapter 3267. Mu Qingya's pupils constricted as she glanced at Old Madam. However, Old Madam was looking straight ahead as if she hadn't heard what the crown princess said. She didn't say anything or stop her. Mu Qingya felt a little depressed. Old Madam was clearly showing that she didn't care about anything. With Old Madam's status, as long as she said something, the crown princess might give her some face. However, Old Madam didn't say anything. Mu Qingya glanced at the pale-faced Shi Huixin and couldn't help but curse in her heart. Now, she knew to be afraid. She didn't have her way before, but now, she had a loose tongue. Ao Yi raised his arm in front of Mu Qingya. Madam Mu, please make way. Mu Qingya took a deep breath and hurriedly said, Jojo, your grandfather's birthday is around the corner. It's not good for a bloody disaster to happen. Concubine Shi. Mu Qingya shouted sternly, get over here and apologize to the crown princess. Shi Huixin trembled, unable to suppress her anger. What did I say? Concubine Shi suppressed her surging anger and said with forbearance, this concubine is only grateful to the crown prince consort for not killing me, grateful to the crown prince consort for sparing this concubine's lowly life. How am I speaking without reason? The little crown princess glanced at her coldly and said rudely, I never thought of sparing your life. First, you found someone to impersonate me and tried to ruin my reputation. You made me a rat that everyone despises. Arbor looked at her coldly and said, then, you sent a few servants to disgust His Highness and me. Your actions are still vivid in my mind. Why should I let you off? I wanted to beat you to death that day. You were lucky to have escaped this disaster. How dare you be so arrogant in front of me instead of staying in your rat hole? Do you think that I, the crown princess, can't deal with a lowly servant like you? Ao Ye's heart skipped a beat. He hurriedly cupped his hands and shouted, Crown princess, please calm down. Caixio. Your servant is here. Give her a piece of white silk, a dagger, and a bottle of poison. Let her choose. When Qiao Mu said this coldly, the scene instantly turned silent. Even Madame Nei Chio's eyelids couldn't resist twitching. She thought that the first madam of the Mu family's first branch could protect that lowly concubine. It turned out that in front of the crown princess, the first madam could only suffer. Kai Xiu walked up with a solemn face and directly threw the 3 items that the crown prince consort had mentioned in front of Shi Huixin. She coldly said, Concubine Shi, the crown prince consort grants you death. Do you want to do it yourself, or do you want me to help you? Shi Huixin's chest trembled, and she couldn't help but let out an ear-piercing scream. How dare you? You dare. You're really lawless. What is the ancestral law in your eyes? I, the crown princess, grant you death as a lowly concubine. I really don't need any laws. Arbor looked at her coldly. She had completely lost her patience with this person. Concubine Shi had never been humiliated like this. She was so angry that she sat paralyzed in her wheelchair, trembling uncontrollably. Mu Ro Yen was also about to go crazy. She rushed forward and waved her fist. "How dare you treat my mother like this? I'll kill." Ah! A strong and agile female servant quickly came out from the old madam's side. Without saying a word, she pulled and twisted the second Mrs. arm and pinned it behind her back with one hand. Mu Ro Yen felt that the other party's strength was so strong that it seemed like she was going to break her arm. It was so painful that cold sweat broke out on her forehead. Chapter 3268. Without another word, Kai Xiu had already kicked up the white silk on the ground and walked over with Kai Chi. The white silk was about to wrap around Concubine Shi's neck. Concubine Shi's entire body suddenly erupted with power. Kai Xiu and Kai Chi were only level 8 or level 9 mystic cultivators, so they naturally couldn't withstand this sudden burst of spiritual power. Seeing that this spiritual power was about to land on them, A flew forward and punched. The ferocious power collided head-on with the incoming spiritual power. Without any suspense, Concubine Shi screamed and flew out with her wheelchair. She fell to the ground with a thud and couldn't get up for a long time. Kai Xiu knitted her brows and exchanged glances with Kai Chi. The two quickly walked forward and wrapped the white silk around her neck twice. Seeing those two servant girls expressionlessly tightening their grip on the white silk, Shi Huixin's face instantly turned ashen. Her spiritual power was currently being suppressed by that black-clothed young imperial guard, so she couldn't even use half of it. Could it be that she was going to watch helplessly as she was hanged to death in such a cowardly manner? Abba coldly glanced at her and said in a seemingly nonchalant manner, "Still not sending a message to Shuntian Prefecture? You're about to die. If you die, you won't have a chance to ask Prefecture Lord Gung for help." Shi Huixin's eyes flickered, but she didn't speak. Seeing Shi Huixin's guilty expression, could it be that she really knew Shuntian Prefecture's Prefecture Lord, Gung Pengcheng? Seeing that she didn't seem to be faking it, Abba couldn't help but frown. Should he just deal with her like this? This woman really did seem to have some small secrets on her. Could it be that the old rival who had been contacting Shuntian Prefecture's Prefecture Lord, who had been chasing after Sir Jojo for years, was really this Shi Huixin? But seeing how she had previously accepted Xiao Yingchuan's impersonation and used Xiao Xing, Zhu Xian, and the others to do that, she didn't seem to be that brainy. Could it be that a person's intelligence also had its highs and lows, and sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't? Abba only felt that the fog was thick and couldn't help but hesitate. Should I keep her for further investigation? However, Mr. Jojo was a man of his word. Since he had said that he would kill her, there was no way he could go back on his word. Otherwise, where would she put her little face? Jojo was in a dilemma when a warm hand patted the back of his hand. "Jojo." The old madam finally spoke. "Concubine Shi is wrong, but Qingya is right about one thing. Your grandfather's birthday is just around the corner. It's not good for our Mu family to see blood. Just take it as giving face to your grandfather and let her off this time," the old madam said kindly. She turned around and glanced at Shi Huixin. Her eyes were slightly stern as she said, "Why aren't you thanking the Crown Princess for her grace?" A mere servant dared to shout in front of the Crown Princess. She simply didn't know what she was talking about. When you return, reflect on your mistakes. In the future, if there's nothing important, don't step out of the courtyard. Sir Jojo was originally considering whether he should keep this concubine Shi for a few more days to find out the whole story from her. In the end, was this concubine Shi the mastermind behind the order for Shuntian Prefecture to chase after her? One had to know that in her previous life, she didn't even know until her death that her tragic fate was actually manipulated by someone. One could imagine how vicious and ruthless the person behind the scenes was and how deeply they had hidden. Was concubine Shi really the mastermind behind the assassination of Sir Jojo? Chapter 3269. Did she have such a meticulous brain? Judging from the slight reaction in her eyes when she heard the words Manor Head Gung, it was clear that she knew this person. Arba was perplexed. Thank you, Crown Princess, for your grace. As soon as Saishio and Saichi let go, Shi Huixin hastily coughed several times before lying on the ground and shouting in a slightly hoarse voice. Arba coldly swept a glance at her. Since the old madam had spoken, she would go along with it and let this woman off for now. She would find a day to have a deep chat with this woman. Mu Qingya sighed in relief and hurriedly said with a smile, "Look at us, we were so focused on talking with the Crown Princess that we're standing at the entrance of the garden. The food and wine are already prepared inside. Crown Princess, please." The old madam also smiled and said, "Come, come, come. The Sea of Flowers in New South Garden is famous for being beautiful. You girls love it the most. Grandma will take you for a stroll." Sir Jojo wanted to laugh. He stole a glance at the old madam and saw that she was in high spirits. It was obvious that he was more interested. "You've just recovered from a serious illness and still need to rest. Although it's spring now, it's still quite cold today. It won't be good if you catch a cold." The old madam pursed her lips and muttered softly, "You're saying the same thing as your grandfather. I've been cooped up at home all year round. It's rare for me to come out to play. Jojo, accompany Grandma for a stroll." Arba was a bit helpless, but seeing that the old madam was in high spirits, she nodded. The group of people clustered around the old madam. They appeared to be a harmonious and beautiful family, chatting and laughing along the way. However, who knew what the people in each branch were thinking at that moment? Jojo accompanied the old madam all the way. Blooming flowers filled their eyes. New South Garden was indeed a place to admire flowers. No wonder the old madam was in such high spirits. Today, the Mu family had booked the entire New South Garden, so the only people walking in the garden were the Mu family's members. There were no other people strolling around. The group walked around half of the garden. After all, the old lady was old and had just recovered from a long illness. Although he had some foundation in cultivation, he was still a little tired. Arba then helped her to a nearby gazebo to sit down. Mu Qingya virtuously went out to make arrangements. She asked the servants to deliver tea and water, as well as a clean handkerchief for old madam to clean her hands. The old lady sipped her tea with a relaxed expression. Then, she held Arba's hand and said, "Jojo, your grandfather's birthday is coming soon. Why don't you move back here tomorrow for a few days? Ever since you came back from the royal school, you haven't come back to stay. Your grandfather really misses you." Arba tried his best to squeeze out a smile for the old lady, but his little face was still a little tense. The Crown Prince has been quite busy these days. He has to attend court every day. It's not very convenient for him to move back. The old madam looked disappointed, but she still held Arba's hand and said, "Can't you just come back and stay for a few days? Yulon Court is cleaned every day. You don't have to bring anything with you when you come back. Just bring yourself back." Arba saw the sincerity in the old madam's eyes and his heart couldn't help but waver. He nodded and said, "Let's delay it for 2 days. I'll go back and tell the Crown Prince." The old madam's face instantly brimmed with a smile. She nodded repeatedly with joy in her eyes. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.